Hi, friend, and welcome to Tidy the Clutter podcast. I'm Mariah, and I'm so glad you're here. This is the place where we talk about real life ways to simplify your home and digital spaces. Let's face it, life gets busy real quick. Between work, kids, emails, and everything else on your plate, it's easy to feel like things are slipping through the cracks. The good news, it doesn't have to stay that way. In each episode, I'll be sharing practical tips, small wins, and simple strategies to help you clear the clutter both in your physical and digital spaces. You can feel more in control and have more time for what truly matters most to you. Whether it's setting up routines that stick, taming your inbox, or tackling toy chaos, my goal is to make getting organized doable, even on your busiest days. So, grab your favorite drink, settle in, and let's get started. Think of that one box in the back of your closet. You know what I'm talking about? That one filled with childhood treasures, love letters, or your kids' earliest drawings. It's not just a box. It's a time capsule of emotions. Let's be real. But what if that box has become a burden instead of a joy? Studies have shown that holding on to sentimental clutter isn't just a personal struggle. It's a psychological one. I know, I might get some grief about that. Research from Psychology Today highlights that clutter can trigger increased stress, anxiety, and even lead up to procrastination. If you are feeling overwhelmed by the sentimental items piling up, you're not alone. There are so many of us out there that feel the exact same. This episode is for you, my friend. When I first moved out of my parents' house, I literally held on to everything. Every little thing reminded me of the home I grew up in, my parents, my memories of being a child, just everything. And I was afraid of losing those memories. But the older I got and the more I moved, the more I realized dragging everything with me was really exhausting. I hadn't touched certain things in years, and some didn't even make sense to keep anymore. Like my kindergarten drawing. Well, do I remember doing that drawing? Sort of, but it just didn't serve its purpose anymore. It didn't make any sense. These days, I still keep sentimental items, but they're usually gifts from my girls, which feels a bit different. In this episode, we're going to dive into how to let go of sentimental items without the guilt. I'm going to be sharing practical tips that have helped me and my family, plus some psychological insights from experts on why decluttering sentimental things can actually improve our mental well-being. If sentimental items aren't your biggest struggle, but clutter hotspots like paper piles or closets are, you might want to check out episode 7, Tackling Clutter Hotspots for Good. It's packed with simple strategies that tie in nicely with today's conversation. Psychologists say that sentimental clutter isn't just about physical items. It's tied to our identity and our sense of self. According to the Journal of Consumer Psychology, items we associate with personal memories activate parts of our brains connected to emotional processing. How crazy is that? That is so crazy. Anyway, this is why letting go feels like we're losing a piece of our past. I mean, I cannot be the only one who has had something sentimental and has thrown it away or given it away or whatnot and just been super sad about it and teared up. I feel like I'm not alone here, so I don't feel quite as embarrassed. But there's also a study by Neural Launch who has also found that clutter can actually lead to mental overload, reducing decision-making capabilities. When we declutter, we literally free up mental space, allowing for clearer thought process. I had a moment when I realized that these items that I was holding on to, whether they're old gifts or keepsakes, don't actually hold the memory. I do. My brain does. So I need to unclutter so my brain can still remember them. My brain is what is holding the memory. I can take a picture of the item, preserve the memory, and still let go of the physical object. If this mindset shift resonates with you, I would highly check out episode 2. It's Digital Decluttering Made Simple. It's all about digital tools that can help simplify our lives while still preserving important memories. So I think it's a good episode. It kind of ties in with what we're talking about. Now, if you're ready to start decluttering sentimental items, here are some tips grounded in research that have actually helped me. So the first one is to start small. You build momentum without overwhelming yourself. So according to Southern Living, starting with less emotionally charged items builds decluttering confidence. I didn't start by throwing out everything at once. Instead, I began with things like vacation souvenirs or greeting cards or the beautiful Christmas cards that you get once, and then what the heck do you do with them, right? This actually reminds me of episode 5 about the family center. And in that episode, I talked about how starting small and building routines like managing paper clutter can really snowball into bigger wins across the home. That's a good one too if you haven't heard it. But the second part is to set boundaries. So limit keepsakes to avoid overwhelm. One study from the Spruce recommends dedicating a spot for sentimental items to avoid clutter overflow. I keep a memory box, we can call it, for my girls. And in the box, I've got like preschool, before preschool, and it goes all the way to college. They will have one box. Okay. This is coming from, I had 12 boxes, which was insane. But that's okay. That's okay. The intentions were good behind it. But my girls have a memory box. And inside the memory box is also their baby book. Their baby book is in that memory box too. If the box starts to overflow, which I haven't had happen yet because my girls are still pretty young, then I know it's time that we reassess. So at one point, and the box is still not overflowing, but at one point, my oldest, when she was in second grade, for some reason, she wanted to keep everything. So every single thing went in that second grade thing. At the end of the year in second grade, we kind of went through and we're like, really? You really need this spelling test? Kind of like, no, I don't. I think what happened is the box became, oh, all my paper is just going to go into my second grade folder. I was like, what? No, that's not the purpose. Anyway, so when it starts to overflow or when a folder is starting to get really large, then reassess it. That is my motto. That's what I'm going to go for and go by. Then just reassess it. No big deal, right? Now, the third tip that I have is digitize those memories. You preserve the sentiment without the clutter. I've started using, I slaughter the name every time, so I need to listen to it on Google just so I can hear it correctly. But archive, I might have slaughtered it again. I will link it in the show notes just so you can see what the heck is she talking about. But anyway, I use this box to preserve my girls' artwork. The Real Simple Guide on Sentimental Decluttering recommends digitizing letters and photos and artwork for reducing clutter without losing the sentiment. So if you haven't heard about Archive, the box that I just said that I slaughter every time I say it, I talked about it more in episode 4 about organizing kids' artwork without the giant mess. But in a quick summary, what it basically is your kiddos draw you beautiful pictures and your fridge is full and then you're taking them down. What are you going to do with those beautiful pictures that you wanted to save and they wanted to save? You would put it in this box, and once the box is filled, they take professional pictures of the artwork or the drawing, whatever it is, and they compile it into a book. So then you still have those memories. It's just a book instead of hundreds of pieces of artwork. So I highly recommend checking it out. Now, my fourth tip for this would be to rehome sentimental items. Pass them on. Rehoming sentimental items can really create a positive feeling around decluttering. There's actually a study by, what was it? Oh, Psychology Today that found that donating sentimental items increased feelings of satisfaction and even generosity. Like, how cool is that? One thing that I feel like we have in our home a lot is a DI bag or a DI box. And when I come across things that I don't necessarily need or use, or I just feel like somebody else can get so much more out of it, I will put it in that boxer bag. And then it seems like about once a month, once every other month, we go to the DI. We drop it off at our local DI. And it does bring you a sense of, "Oh, that felt really good. Like getting rid of that. That was really nice." But also knowing that somebody else can benefit from it, I think is just nice because you know that you're potentially serving somebody else. Now, what about the story with children? There is a article from Psychology Science that actually suggests that kids form emotional bonds with objects like stuffed animals or blankets because it provides them a sense of security. Now, my oldest has bonds with a ton of stuffed animals. There are definitely a handful that are more her favorites, and I know better than to ever mention, hey, we need to get rid of that stuffed animal. Like, I know better, but there becomes a point where we go somewhere and it's like the girls can get a toy or get something, a souvenir, and she typically picks a stuffed animal. So there are points that she has a lot of stuffed animals in her room. I just can't fathom, like, how did she collect so many? Anyway, so that was like off the point, but she gets way too many stuffed animals, right? And when she gets to that point, it's kind of like, okay, we kind of need to like circle back. Let's get rid of ones that you don't really play with or whatnot. And sometimes she just panics. You can just see on her face, like, what? These are my prized possessions, kind of thing. So what I found that has actually worked is using it more as a, well, do you think another child would love this bear more than you love it right now? Sometimes it works, other times it doesn't. But just this gentle shift in perception, I find helps her be like, okay, yeah, you're right. And sometimes that other child is their little sister. It goes from one room to another. But that's okay. That's okay. We are slowly moving it around. Now, in episode 3, Decluttering with Kids, I actually shared more tips on making this process fun and ideally less emotional for kids. You can check that one out if you are needing a little bit more thoughts into it. So, just to kind of circle back, decluttering sentimental items isn't about erasing memories. That is definitely not what I am trying to say. It's about keeping the things that truly matter and letting go of the rest. Each item you thoughtfully let go of is really a step toward creating space for the life you want. And you can easily take pictures of these sentimental items on your phone. If you organize your photos, just organize it. You know, you aren't going to lose the memory because if you want to reminisce, then great. You've got pictures that you can reminisce on. Just to summarize, it is hard. I am not saying it is not hard because heaven forbid, it is hard to let go of things that we have emotional attachments to, but it is doable. One thing that you can do too is you can look at it one year and then hold on to it. And then the next year you might find, I think I'm ready. I think I'm ready to let that go. And that works too. You've really got to find what works for you. The tips that I added into this episode are tips that have helped me, but finding what works for you is going to be the best. So you can definitely try them. If you have other tips for letting go of sentimental items, I would love to hear that. I'm glad you joined me on today's episode. And my friend, if you are not on my newsletter, I just send a nice reminder once a week that, hey, we have a new episode. In case you don't want to listen to the whole episode, I've got little breakdowns in there that will kind of be like, ooh, nice. Thanks for the little tips. Anyway, that happens every week. You can sign up. I'll have a link in the show notes, and the show notes will be at tinytheclutter.com/015. And my friend, next week we are tackling toy clutter. I feel like all my moms out there are going to be like, yes, we need that, especially after all the holidays. Anyway, have a good one, and I will talk to you next week.
Thanks so much for tuning in to the Tidy the Clutter podcast. I hope you're leaving today with at least one small step that you're excited to take. Remember, it's not about being perfect. It's about finding what works for you and building on it little by little. If you enjoyed today's episode, I'd love it if you'd give the podcast a follow and leave a quick review. It really helps others find the show and join us on this journey toward less stress and more ease. And if you're looking for more tips, resources, or just a bit of extra motivation, head over to tidytheclutter.com, and everything you need to stay organized and feel more in control is waiting for you there. Until next time, keep things simple, stay focused, and enjoy those small wins along the way. Take care and talk soon.